Elves. Elves are the firstborn, immortal beings whose spirits, fear, remain in the world until its end. They awoke at Cuivienen on the shores of the inland sea of Helcar in the far east of Middle-earth before the sun and moon. From that awakening stems all later Elvish history and nomenclature. The first decisive split is the great journey west. Those who accepted the summons are the Eldar. Those who refused are the Avari, the unwilling. Among the Eldar, three host peoples began the march: Vanyar, Noldor, and Teleri. Those who reached Aman and saw the two trees are Calaquendi, elves of the light. Those who never saw that light are Mori-kendi. These labels explain later power and prestige differences. Calaquendi are repeatedly described as mightier and wiser than Middle-earth kindreds that never saw Aman. The Teleri divide further. Some become the Falmari of Aman, others, delayed in Beleriand, become the Sindar under Thingol. A still earlier branch turns aside as the Nandor, later including the Sylvan Elves of Greenwood and Lorien. This branching accounts for later grey elves ruling in Beleriand and wood elves in the vales of Anduin and Lorien without the light of the trees. The Noldor exile defines much First Age history. After Morgoth steals the Silmarils, Fëanor and his sons swear an uncompromising oath to reclaim them, precipitating rebellion and the kinslaying at Alqualonda to seize ships. Mandos then pronounces the doom of the Noldor, warning of blood and treachery if they persist. Some Noldor cross the Helcaraxe after being abandoned by Fëanor. These events set up centuries of Noldorin war in Beleriand and the moral fractures that persist into later ages. Elvish fading is a metaphysical process distinct from wraith corruption. As the world coarsens, elvish bodies wane while spirits wax. In late ages, elves can become unseen to mortals unless they will to be perceived. The three elven rings were specifically intended to preserve against time and decay, creating enclaves such as Rivendell and Lorien, and thus partially delayed fading until the One Ring's destruction ended that preservation. Men are the second-born, mortal with the gift of death, departure from the world to a destiny unknown to any but Ilúvatar. This distinct fate drives different cultures toward urgency, ambition, and fear of death, and it explains vulnerability to Sauron's promises. The first allies of the Eldar are the Edain, organized into three houses, Beor, Haleth, and Hador, whose friendships with elvish realms bring knowledge and status, but also catastrophic losses against Morgoth. The Edain's reward after the War of Wrath is Númenor, a star-shaped island raised in the Great Sea. Númenorians receive long life, advanced arts, and mastery of seamanship, but the Valar impose a ban: sail freely east, not west, to Aman in pursuit of immortality. Over time, many Númenorians, the king's men, resent the ban and fear death, while the faithful maintain friendship with the Elder. Sauron later subverts Númenor from within. Ar-Pharazôn breaks the ban, sails against Aman in S.A. 3319, and the downfall follows as the world is changed and Númenor drowned. Surviving faithful under Elendil and his sons found Arnor and Gondor in S.A. 3320. The Dúnedain in Middle-earth diminish across centuries. In the north, Arnor fractures and falls to Angmar, leaving the northern Dúnedain as wandering rangers preserving fragments of Númenorian culture. In the south, Gondor's kingship lapses, and the stewards rule a realm simultaneously eroded by plague, invasions, and loss of outlands, but still formidable in archives, stonework, and arms. The line of Isildur endures among the rangers, enabling the late restoration of kingship. Easterlings and Haradrim are broad, diverse labels. Eastern confederations such as the Wainriders and Balchoth pressure the north and Gondor in successive waves, and often align with Sauron through fear, coercion, or political calculus, rather than inherent malice. Southern polities in Harad field distinctive forces, most famously Mumakil, and their repeated clashes with Gondor are shaped by frontier politics and Númenorian colonial memory. These dynamics explain recurring wars without reducing whole cultures to caricature. Dwarves. Dwarves were made by Aul and given true life and fate by Ilúvatar. They are hardy, tradition-bound, slow to change, and resistant to domination. Their society organizes around 7 ancestral houses: Longbeards, Durin's folk, firebeards, broad beams, iron fists, stiff beards, blacklocks, and stonefoots. Western houses, firebeards, broad beams, founded Belegost and Nogrod in the Blue Mountains. Longbeards established Khazad-dûm. The eastern four houses dwelt primarily in Rhûn. These lineages underpin guarded names, trade networks, and loyalty patterns. Durin's folk traced to Durin, the first near Mount Gundabad, and build Khazad-dûm, enriched by mithril and by alliance with Eregion, e.g. the Doors of Durin. In TA 1980 to 1981, mining wakes the Balrog, later called Durin's Bane. Durin the Sixth and then Nine the First are slain, and Khazad-dûm is abandoned. Dispersed Longbeards establish centers at Erebor, the Iron Hills, and the Grey Mountains. Smaug's coming drives another exile, later reversed by Thorin's quest and Dain II's kingship. Balin's attempt to retake Moria fails. In the Fourth Age, Durin's folk flourish again at Erebor and in new works such as Gimli's glittering caves. The Seven Rings inflame avarice, but do not enslave dwarves as the Nine do men. Sauron recovers some, others are destroyed or lost through dragons and horde disasters. The result is a historical rhythm of accumulating treasure, inviting dragon wrath, and enduring exile and resettlement. Dwarven doctrine on the afterlife holds that their spirits go to special halls of Mandos under Mahal's care, awaiting the world's renewal to aid Aule, a belief later endorsed in Tolkien's notes, distinguishing dwarves' fate from that of elves and men. Hobbits. Hobbits are a small branch of men, first recorded in the early Third Age. Their ancestral home lies east of the Misty Mountains in the upper Anduin Vale, with kin-based communities practicing simple agriculture and riverine trades. Early distinctions are three interbreeding breeds. Harfoots, most numerous, smaller, browner, preferring hillsides and smiles. Fallohides, taller, fairer, more adventurous, often leaders and hunters. And Stoors, broader, river folk fond of boats, living in lowlands and wearing boots. Over time, these become family traits rather than separate peoples. The first westward movement begins circa TA 1050, amid Angmar's rise and shadow in Greenwood. Harfoots lead across the high pass and spread in Eriador. Around TA 1150, Fallohides follow in smaller numbers, while many Stoors settle in the angle between the Horwell and Loudwater, or drift south toward Tharbad's trade. A Stoor remnant remains east in the Gladden Fields for centuries. These staggered migrations explain why Bree has early mixed man-hobbit communities and why Stoor River customs persist near the Brandywine. The Shire's founding consolidates Hobbit settlement. In the year 1601, the Fallohide brothers Marco and Blanco, with the king's leave, lead groups from Bree across the Brandywine to occupy a royal hunting reserve. Simple obligations include road and bridge upkeep and light render. Thereafter, intermarriage blends the three strains, so Harfoot customs dominate everyday life, while Fallohide traits appear in leading families, and Stoor survivals persist in river districts like the Marish. In the year 2340, Gorhindad Oldbuck leads colonists across the Brandywine to found Buckland and Brandy Hall, creating a river-facing community with stronger defenses against the old forest. Ents and Huorns. Ents come into being through Yavanna's petition to Ilúvatar for protectors of growing things. Early elves teach them language, catalyzing their awareness. Ents are long-lived tree-like beings whose society centers on deliberative Entmoots, and whose speech, Entish, is accretive and exhaustive. Their power is practical, shaping landscapes, breaking stoneworks, rather than showy magic. Huorns occupy a border state between trees and Ents, mobile by night, capable of malice or favor, and responsive to Ents' rousing. The sundered Entwives explain Ent demography and melancholy. Entwives loved ordered gardens and moved east across the Anduin. Wars in the late Second Age likely ruined their lands in the Brown Lands, after which Ents could not find them. Without Entwives, there are no Entings, and numbers stagnate. Many Ents go tree-ish, entering long quiescence. The last march of the Ents shows remaining strength. They break Isengard's works and flood its pits by breaching dams, then withdraw to restore Fangorn rather than becoming a roaming power. Valar and Maiar. Ainur who enter the world are Valar, greater, and Maiar, lesser. Both can assume fana, self-chosen bodily forms that provide senses and local presence but do not bind them to mortality. True incarnation is a deeper limit, accepting the constraints of bodily life, fatigue, pace, vulnerability for a long mission. This distinction explains how some spirits come and go in visible form, while others take on enduring human-like lives. The Istari, wizards, are Maiar sent in the Third Age, under strict constraints to counsel rather than dominate. They come as old men with veiled memory and moderated power, traveling by horse and foot and relying on alliances. Gandalf, Olorin, hews most closely to this brief. After his fall with the Balrog, he truly dies and is sent back by higher authority, returning as Gandalf the White, with clarified mandate and greater freedom within the original constraints. These points, drawn from later texts and letters, explain both his aging appearance and post-return authority. Sauron, originally a Maiar of Aule, exemplifies strategic embodiment. As Anatar, he adopts a fair fana to corrupt the elven smiths of a region, teaching ring lore while concealing intent. He then secretly forges the One Ring in Orodruin, investing a large portion of his native power to dominate the other rings and their bearers. This binds his potency to a material artifact so that its destruction renders him permanently impotent in Middle-earth. After the downfall of Númenor, he can no longer take a fair form, appearing in terrible aspect thereafter. Balrogs are corrupted fire Maiar who keep warlike bodies as captains under Morgoth. Their fana can be destroyed in combat, such as by Glorfindel in the First Age and by Gandalf at Durin's Bane, driving the spirits away and diminishing their power. Later texts reduce their probable number to a few, explaining rarity after the War of Wrath. Their fear-inducing presence, flaming whips, and great strength match the terror they inspire in narratives. Orcs, competing origin theories, appear in the legendarium. The published Silmarillion presents orcs as descended from captured and corrupted early elves. Later notes question whether such corruption is compatible with elvish immortality and experiment with men-derived or mixed origins. Across versions, constants are that orcs breed as organisms rather than as puppeted constructs. Their wills are dominated but not replaced, and their cultures are built on coercion and fear. Because Tolkien never issued a single definitive reconciliation, the prudent model treats early orcs as mixed or man-derived by very early corruption, with later hosts incorporating substantial human admixture. Orc languages are plural. In the Third Age, most everyday speech among orcs is Western-based pidgin. Mordor elites cultivate black speech, a constructed tongue Sauron created in the Dark Years to unify his servants. Pure black speech falls out of use after Sauron's defeat at the end of the Second Age, and resurges with his return. Debased forms are heard among soldiery. This explains why the ring inscription is in a form many orcs themselves do not naturally speak. Named orcish breeds reflect targeted breeding. The Uruk-hai appear from Mordor in TA 2475, bigger and less impaired by sunlight. Saruman later produces his own Isengarders, and he also uses goblin men and half-orcs, suggesting hybridization with men to increase size and endurance. Parallel efforts produce Olog-hai among trolls, sun-resistant under Sauron's will, showing a consistent late Third Age strategy of breeding shock troops to match campaign needs. Others. The great eagles are immense, sapient birds, associated with Manwë's authority. In the First Age, Thorondor is described as greatest of birds. In the late Third Age, Gwaihir leads northern eagles. Their interventions are selective, scouting, rescue, and decisive strikes. Rather than a standing air transport arm constrained by the risks of visibility, enemy air power, and their own autonomy. Tom Bombadil is a bounded power whose mastery is absolute only within his small domain around the Old Forest. The ring neither tempts him nor adheres to his metaphysical frame, and council judgment is that he would not guard it or range beyond his bounds to resist Sauron's system. Therefore, entrusting the ring to him would fail strategically. Tolkien leaves his kind deliberately undefined in the texts. The safe inference in-world is a primeval local spirit whose authority is local, not imperial. Trolls are mockeries made to imitate Ents as Orcs parody Elves. Early strains are powerful, but limited by sunlight. Some turn to stone. Late in the Third Age, Sauron breeds Uruk-hai, who, so long as his will holds sway, can endure the sun and fight in organized formations. This change accounts for the disciplined, daylight-capable trolls that appeared at the end of the age. The Dúnedain, Woses, are an ancient branch of men with keen senses, woodcraft, and territorial neutrality. They avoid large kingdoms, using stealth, signals, and carved pukul men to control movement through their forests. In the War of the Ring, their leader, Gun guides the Rohirrim by secret paths, enabling the relief of Minas Tirith without attrition along the Great West Road. Their aid is precise, limited, and contingent on respect for their borders. Before you go, drop a comment. Which race should I deep dive next, and what unanswered detail do you want covered? If this helped, hit like so the video gets recommended to more Tolkien fans. Subscribe and turn on notifications for the next lore breakdown. Share this with a friend who still argues about orc origins.